Looks like we are live. Going live now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends and neighbors, fans and haters. Welcome to episode 33 of the Callous Mind Talking Head livecast. And this will most likely be the last episode before, uh, for at least probably a couple of weeks, I would imagine, because today is actually my daughter's last day of school, so I gotta see what I can do about continuing to be able to do the show while she's home. So that's not always the easiest thing in the world to do, but I'll probably try it anyway. And without further ado, let me go ahead and jump into the first story here. And this is actually great news and congratulations to Monty Williams. Monty Williams of the Phoenix Suns voted NBCA Coach of the Year, sources say. This story just came out today at 9:20 a.m. Mountain Time, I guess. Phoenix Suns coach Monty Williams has been voted as the National Basketball Coaches Association Coach of the Year, sources told ESPN on Tuesday. The league's 30 head coaches vote on the award named in honor of the late NBCA Executive Director Michael Goldberg. Williams resurrected the Suns' floundering franchise, leading them to a 51-21 regular season and the number 2 seed in the Western Conference playoffs. Williams led the Suns to their first Pacific Division title since 2007, and they became the 5th team in league history to improve its win total by 15 or more games in successive seasons. Phoenix improved by 17 games this season in just a 72-game shortened regular season. The Suns were one of only 4 teams to be ranked in the top 10 in defense and offense this season. 2 years ago, Williams inherited a team that had gone 19-63. Among those also receiving votes, sources said Washington's Scott Brooks, Denver's Michael Malone, Atlanta's Nate McMillan, Philadelphia's Doc Rivers, Utah's Quinn Snyder, and New York's Tom Thibodeau. So I think that's a pretty cool story there. I'm glad to see Monty getting some love, so it's always a good thing. And this next story is more to do about Arizona, but it's this is something that I've always thought about living in Arizona since I was an adult, and this was from May 13th. Our own survival is at stake. Arizona is using up its groundwater, researchers warn. It says in 1980, Arizona began regulating groundwater in the state's largest cities and suburbs under a landmark law that called for most of these areas to achieve an overarching goal by 2025, a long-term balance between the amount of water pumped from the ground and the amount seeping back underground to replenish aquifers. 41 years later, the state's latest data shows most of the areas where groundwater is managed remain far from achieving a long-term balance, a goal known as safe yield. Groundwater is still overpumped in most of the state's active management areas, or AMAs, and in many places aquifer levels continue to decline. In a new report, researchers at Arizona State University warned that groundwater has been seriously overallocated under the current laws, allowing for unsustainable pumping that threatens the state's water future. They say the state's leaders urgently need to reform Arizona's groundwater rules to safeguard these finite reserves and prevent aquifers from continuing to drop. While safe yield was intended to be sort of a substitute for sustainable groundwater use, that's not the way it has played out, said Kathleen Ferris, a senior research fellow at Arizona State's Callous Center for Water Policy. We aren't really sustainably using our groundwater, and we have got to figure out a way to do that, or I don't see a really bright future in the long term. Ferris and co-author Sarah Porter of Callous Center's director said in their report that Arizona is overdue for new strategies to move towards sustainability and put the state's groundwater house in order, especially in areas where aquifers are rapidly declining. In many parts of the desert southwest, the water that's stored underground in aquifers soaked into the land thousands of years ago, and these ancient water reserves are being depleted as wells pumped from aquifers to supply farmlands and desert cities. Arizona also uses water from the Salt and Verde rivers and from the Colorado River delivered via the Central Arizona Project Canal. For years, Colorado River water has flowed into a network of basins where the water has soaked down to recharge aquifers, but more than 2 decades of hotter, drier conditions amplified by climate change, have eroded the flow of the Colorado River and pushed the Southwest to the brink of shortages, shrinking the amount of water that's available to offset pumping and replenish groundwater. Ferris, a lawyer, helped draft the state's 1980 Groundwater Management Act and later became director of the State Department of Water Resources. In the years since, she's seen how the conservation requirements under that law have helped manage demands for water in Arizona cities, but she sees major weaknesses in the law as well as rules that were subsequently adopted, and says the state doesn't have adequate measures in place to sustain its groundwater for future generations. Doing this report has sort of been breaking my heart, Ferris told the Arizona Republican in an interview, because we can't allocate all our groundwater away and pump it all in because we can't allocate all our groundwater away and pump it all in 100 years and just say, okay, let's all move on. And I feel that's sort of the road we're starting to go down. If Arizona doesn't stop now, put some brakes on, and start to look at groundwater in a more sophisticated way, she said, at some point soon in the coming years, it will be very bad here. Former Arizona Governor Bruce Babbitt, who signed the 1980 Groundwater Act into law and later became U.S. Interior Secretary, said the report provides a really good analysis of where we stand and what it is that needs to be done by detailing the problems of groundwater overdraft in the managed areas. Babbitt said it shows Arizona needs to bring its 41-year-old groundwater law up to date. We've made a lot of progress, but what this report points out is that we haven't gone far enough because we are still overdrafting groundwater, Babbitt said. I believe it is the most important issue facing Arizona today, and that the future of our state very much depends on legislative action, which is way overdue. Yeah, that's truth. It's a very critical issue because nothing will make property values drop quite as quickly as running out of water and this just turning into a dead land. So alright, so this next story up, this was from May 12th. Firefighters who took and shared photos of Kobe Bryant crash site could be fired per court documents. I actually think that they should be fired. There's no could be about it. They should be. Los Angeles. 2 Los Angeles County firefighters could be fired and a third suspended after some first responders took and shared graphic photos from the site of the helicopter crash that killed Kobe Bryant, his teenage daughter, and 7 others, court documents say. The court documents were filed Monday as part of widow Vanessa Bryant's federal lawsuit against Los Angeles County that alleges invasion of privacy. The filings propose that a November 16th trial be postponed 5 months to April 27, 2022 because of a large amount of material that attorneys need to review. Kobe Bryant and the others were killed January 26, 2020 when the helicopter they were aboard crashed west of Los Angeles. Federal safety officials blame pilot error for the wreck that killed the Los Angeles Lakers basketball star. An internal investigation by the Los Angeles County Fire Department found that 2 firefighters, whose names are not disclosed in the court filings, had taken photos of the bodies in the helicopter wreckage that served no business necessity. Vanessa Bryant's attorneys wrote, and only served to appeal to baser instincts and desires for what amounted to visual gossip. They then sent the photos to a third firefighter, a media relations officer who went to the scene and later shared the images with off-duty firefighters and their wives and girlfriends while socializing at an award ceremony at a Hilton hotel the month after the crash. The 2 firefighters, one of whom was at the site solely to monitor safety procedures, were sent intention to discharge letters last December. The third firefighter received an intention to suspend letter The employment status of all three was not immediately clear Wednesday. Los Angeles County attorneys have argued that there is no legal basis for Vanessa Bryant's lawsuit because the photos were not publicly disseminated. She can't sue for a hypothetical harm that they might be shared publicly, the county said in filings. Captain Ron Harrelson, a spokesperson for the county fire department, declined to comment, citing the lawsuit. Several Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies, none of whom were directly involved in the investigation of the crash, are also included in the lawsuit because they are accused of taking or passing around the grisly photos with family, friends, and in one case, a bar patron and a bartender who later complained to the sheriff's department. Sheriff Alex Villanueva condemned the deputies' behavior and, in a move that has since been heavily criticized, ordered them to delete the photos. The captain of the Malibu Lost Hills Sheriff Station, which oversees the area where the crash occurred, pushed back on the decision but was overruled. The Sheriff's Department said Wednesday that a full administrative investigation was conducted and appropriate administrative action was taken, but it couldn't provide details about discipline involving the deputies because of a pending lawsuit and state employment law that bars disclosing specific administrative actions. Governor Gavin Newsom last year signed a law that makes it a crime for first responders to take unauthorized photos of deceased people at the scene of an accident or crime. Representatives from the union that represents firefighters did not immediately respond to the Associated Press's request for comment Wednesday. The firefighters who received the photos hell's bells. Hang on, I'll get back to that in 1 second here. Alright. See, the firefighters who received the photos and shared them with others was not named in court documents, but the Los Angeles Times has reported that Captain Tony Brenda filed a retaliation lawsuit in November. Brenda alleged he was demoted for refusing to hand over his personal cell phone during the investigation into the photos, which he said was a violation of the Firefighter Bill of Rights. Brenda did, however, hand over his department cell phone and laptop, the Times reported. His lawsuit says he received photos from people working at the crash site, as is common practice on all major incidents. He took his own photos the next day, the Times reported, but denied taking photos of the victims' bodies and said he did not take photos with his personal cell phone. Brenda did not respond to a request for comment Wednesday. So, there you go. Alright, bear with me 1 second here while I pause to get a drink. Alright, so the next story up is Juwan James considering grievance to recoup potential lost 2021 salary from Denver Broncos, sources say. This is from May 15th, and I just found it interesting that somebody has to potentially file a grievance in order to recoup lost salary, but let's see what they say here. Former Denver Broncos offensive tackle Juwan James is strongly considering filing a grievance through the NFL Players Association for lost wages after he tore his Achilles tendon away from the team facility, a source told ESPN's Jeremy Fowler on Saturday. James, who was released Friday with a post-June 1 designation, could seek more than $10 million in salary for the 2021 season that the Broncos appear likely won't cover after they designated him with a non-football injury. The injury has already been a flashpoint between the NFL and NFLPA over the non-football injury designation, which means teams are not required to pay players their full base salaries if they were injured outside of team facilities. The day after James was injured earlier this month, he was specifically named in a memo from the NFL's Management Council to team executives and head coaches. In that memo, it was outlined under the non-football injuries designation that teams like the Broncos would have no contractual obligation to pay players like James who were injured away from the team facilities. The memo also outlined why a player's salary would be paid if the injury had been suffered during a workout at a team's complex. The memo also said clubs are encouraged to remind players of the significant injury-related protection provided if they choose to work out at the club facility and the risks they undertake in choosing to train at a non-NFL location. The NFLPA responded 2 days later in an email to players that said it was gutless to use a player's serious injury as a scare tactic to get you to come running back to these workouts. Free agent safety and NFLPA executive board member Michael Thomas also told ESPN's Dan Graziano this week that all the players are watching how James' situation plays out. The 20-year-old James suffered his season-ending injury earlier this month. On Friday, he posted on social media that his surgery went well, adding, "Appreciate everyone reaching out, always remaining positive and striving to be better than yesterday." Broncos wide receiver Deshaun Hamilton, whom Denver is trying to trade in recent days, also suffered a torn knee ligament in a workout away from the team's complex, according to ESPN and multiple reports. Wow. Good Lord. All right, and this next story up, another broadcaster is retiring. Vin Scully's already retired from the Dodgers, and now it appears that Marv Albert is on his way out too. This was from May 17th. Broadcaster Marv Albert retiring after NBA Eastern Conference Finals. From Michael Jordan soaring through the air to Willis Reed simply walking onto the court, Marv Albert supplied the sound that went with the sights. Albert has called numerous sports during a Hall of Fame career that spans nearly 60 years, though he is mostly linked to basketball. There is no voice more closely associated with the NBA basketball than Marv Albert's, NBA Commissioner Adam Silver said in a statement released Monday by Turner Sports. Albert plans to retire after calling the NBA's Eastern Conference Finals, ending a career that began on radio in 1963. Albert will call the series for TNT. He has been with Turner for 22 years, 19 as an NBA play-by-play announcer. My 55 years of broadcasting the NBA has just flown by, and I've been fortunate to work with so many wonderful and talented people, Albert said. Now I'll have the opportunity to hone my gardening skills and work on my ballroom dancing. Albert, known for his signature Yes call, turns 80 next month. He has covered everything from football and boxing to hockey, baseball, and tennis. But his voice is known to most through basketball, having called 13 NBA Finals and 25 All-Star games for NBC and Turner, along with the Dream Team's romp to the gold medal in the 1992 Barcelona Olympics. Silver said his earliest memories of basketball were listening to Albert call New York Knicks games. Many fans who came to the game during Jordan's run to 6 championships with the Chicago Bulls in the 90s heard the same voice first. From his remarkable run as a play-by-play announcer for the Knicks to his prominent national roles calling our marquee games on NBC and Turner Sports, Marv has been the soundtrack for basketball fans for nearly 60 years, Silver said. Albert became the voice of the New York Rangers in 1965 and the Knicks 2 years later. He was on the radio call in 1970 when the Knicks won their first championship, a memorable moment in NBA history after an injured Reed emerged from the locker room moments before Game 7 against the Los Angeles Lakers at Madison Square Garden. And here comes Willis, and the crowd is going wild, Albert said. He began doing Knicks games on TV for MSG Network in 1986 until he and the organization parted in 2004 over disagreements with his salary and style. Albert was also fired by NBC in 1997 after pleading guilty to assault in a lured sex case when a longtime lover accused him of biting her on the back more than a dozen times and forcing her to have oral sex. Albert called 8 Super Bowls and 8 Stanley Cup finals. So they couldn't post this article without putting this whole a longtime lover accused him of biting her on the back more than a dozen times, man, and forcing her to have oral sex. Well, I would think that if she was a longtime lover, that oral sex part was probably a regular thing, but maybe that's just me making an assumption. Alright, so the next story up, this was from May 17th as well. Washington football team's all-time sacks leader Ryan Kerrigan joins Philadelphia Eagles. Oof. Well, it's always bad when you can when you lose one of your guys and one of your competitors or division rivals gets him if he's going to make their team better. Four-time Pro Bowl edge rusher Ryan Kerrigan, the Washington football team's all-time sacks leader, announced Monday that he is signing with the Philadelphia Eagles. Kerrigan, 32, was a first-round pick by Washington in 2011 and played the first 10 years of his NFL career for Washington, racking up 95 and a half sacks and 147 quarterback hits. He started just one game in 2020 and played 38% of the team's defensive snaps, by far the lowest of his career, but still had 5.5 sacks and 5 tackles for loss. Kerrigan has 13.5 career sacks against Philadelphia, tied Dallas Cowboys for his most sacks against any one team. I know I probably wasn't your favorite player over the past decade, but Eagles fans, I'm fired up to be playing for you guys now. LFG, Kerrigan wrote on social media. Kerrigan joins a defensive end rotation in Philadelphia that includes Brandon Graham, Derek Barnett, and Josh Sweat. He'll be playing for new defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon, who is expected to ask his linemen to read and react more, in contrast to former DC Jim Schwartz's constant attack style. They've got Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett, guys who are entrenched and are bona fide studs in this league, Kerrigan said of the Eagles, but I know they rotate their guys a lot, whether I'm a starter or reserve. I still imagine I'll get a lot of playing time. That was a big thing for me. Washington left the door open for a possible return, according to a team source, but it also has starting ends Montez Sweat and Chase Young, and has drafted 2 more in William Bradley King and Shaka Toney. Washington also has 2 other young ends in James Smith-Williams, a 27th round pick, and Casey Toohill. The team wanted to see how its young ends had developed before exploring a legitimate reunion with Kerrigan. In January, Kerrigan told ESPN, "I always envisioned playing my entire career here." But he said by season's end, as a pending free agent, he had grown used to the thought of playing elsewhere. He remained confident in his ability. Kerrigan said the chance to play Washington twice did not factor into his signing with the Eagles. "No, not at all," he said. "I'm not like, oh, I've got to get revenge on Washington. The place has been so good to me." No, that wasn't a thought at all. So let me go ahead and wet the pipes here one more time for this final read through, and then we'll check some comments. Thought this story was interesting. This was from May 12th. Conor McGregor ranks number 1 on Forbes' list of past year's highest earning athletes. Despite a near global shutdown of sports in 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic, a record 4 athletes each earned $100 million or more in the past year, according to new data from Forbes. MMA star Conor McGregor is atop the list of the world's 10 highest earning athletes, having made $180 million in 2020. This is the 32-year-old's first time in the number 1 slot, and it isn't just because of his fighting earnings. Inside the octagon, he made $22 million, and it was from a fight he lost to Dustin Poirier at UFC 257 in January. McGregor's earnings came from outside ventures, including endorsements and the sale of his whiskey brand Proper Number 12. According to Forbes, his business portfolio also includes DraftKings, the video game Dystopia, Contest of Heroes, and the lifestyle brand Roots of Fight. McGregor joins 3 other superstar athletes who also made more than $100 million total earnings this past year. Soccer stars Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, and Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott. Messi is number 2 on the Forbes list, having made $130 million in 2020. The Barcelona star made $97 million on the field, but his endorsements are also a significant source of wealth. Messi has a lifetime deal with Adidas, as well as clothing line designed by Jenny Hilfiger, and endorsement deals with Tata Motors, Pepsi, Gillette, and Turkish Airlines. Messi is joined by fellow soccer star Cristiano Ronaldo, whose earnings were put at $120 million. In 2020, the Juventus star made $70 million on the field. According to Forbes, the 36-year-old has a lifetime deal with Nike and is behind the CR7 business of branded clothing, accessories, hotels, and gyms. Prescott and LeBron James round out the top 5. Prescott made $107.5 million over the past year, while James amassed $96.5 million. Forbes on the field earnings figures include all prize money, salaries, and bonuses earned between May 1, 2020 and May 1, 2021. So, pretty cool. Alright, so let's see what Adam's got to say here. Looks like a lot. See, get rid of all the golf courses in Arizona to save water. It's too freaking hot to play golf here anyways. Yeah, in the summer, man, it sure is, boy. And kick out all the snowflakes moving here from California. Yeah, that's true that, man, true that. Regarding compensation for non-football related injury depends on his contract and what he was doing. Quite a few players have lied over the years, claiming they were injured while working out. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I know typically there's those clauses in contracts, like, you can't ride motorcycles or, other stuff like that. But, I mean, that Achilles injury is likely something that could have happened anywhere. So it's that's probably a legit thing, but who knows? Hope the guy at least gets something for his agony. See, and then later it comes out they were riding jet skis, snowboarding or something else ridiculous considering they had millions of dollars on the line. Yeah. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't trust a woman that I had just finished biting the hell out of and ask her to give me oral sex. That's a brave man. True that, my friend. True that. That is a good point. Maybe with all the money, McGregor can finally stop wearing that suit from his 6th grade graduation. I always see him in a business suit shouldn't consist of a skin-tight pair of capri pants. Oh my God, that is fantastic. Yep, again, true that, true that. I cannot argue with that. Well, I think that's going to about do it for me today, ladies and gentlemen. Adam, as always, thank you for joining and thank you for contributing. You always provide me a good laugh or two, and I sincerely appreciate that. And I hope everyone out there is doing well, staying healthy, upright, and under their own power. And I will hopefully talk to you all again soon. I do, before I go, I just want to point one thing out, so just bear with me 1 second here while I pull it up. And oh, alright, well, it looks like something happened with my connection there, so just bear with me 1 second here. Alright, so I just want to say that there's a discussion tab on my channel, and when I'm gonna publish again. I mean, if it doesn't come up in your feed because you're subscribed to the channel, then you may want to subscribe and turn on notifications. Otherwise, I typically, if I take some time off and then I come back, I'll usually post the video link here in the discussion tab of the Callous Mind YouTube channel. So, but until then, until I talk to you all again, please, please, please be good to yourselves and each other. Don't burn shit down, and I'll talk to you later. God bless.